Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Eye on the Eagles show. I'm Sports Information Director Tim Hackett. Our first guest today is head volleyball coach Marlyn Mozena. Thanks for being here, Coach Mo.
Thanks, Tim, for having me.
Happy October, Eagles fans. Our first October edition of the show as well. We are live from Tanner's at Redbridge, just off of the Avila campus. Coach, you guys are firmly into conference play now. Finally, you get your first conference win on the board on Saturday night in your second home game of the season. Before we get to that, let's flashback a little bit further because, I mean, at this point in the season, and we're not even halfway through conference yet, we're not even a third of the way through conference yet, but to me there are a couple of top-tier teams right now, and you got to see one of them up close and personal in Oklahoma Wesleyan last week. Were they as good to you seeing them in person as they look to me on the screen?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Oklahoma Wesleyan has a lot of height, but with that they have a lot of offensive options. And so, yeah, they were a great team. I was proud of the way our girls competed with them for just kind of the difference in not only height, but, I mean, they had one girl that was pounding 10-foot line. Daphne has a giant bruise on her thigh, and Daphne on the outside in defense, she's on the 10-foot line. So, I mean, had she not been there, that girl, she
got hit by one of the shots.
Balls, yeah, it was wild, and it wasn't just like a dink. It was like she pounded it. I don't
know if she has any. Yeah. It's Evelyn Rohrberg. I don't know if she has any other setting besides full throttle.
Right.
I mean, she's impressive.
It was so crazy. So really with that game, we just tried to find a lot of positives that we had within that game. And, we were able to walk away with quite a few positives from that, just focusing on things that we know we need to work on. So, we didn't necessarily hit the best, but we hit efficiency-wise, we hit better than we did the game prior. And, and that's something that is what we're working on right now a lot, is just our offensive game and really helping our girls become offensive-minded and finding ways to score. And so, we did some good things that match, but, yeah, just unfortunately, height and talent and capability there was definitely a higher level than us. And so, like I said, we competed like we needed to compete against that team, and we did better than what I expected, honestly. And so it was fun to see that right off the bat. Honestly, having like you said, our conferences, there's a couple of 3 or 4 teams that are pretty stellar, and then from the rest on, it's it's kind of a dogfight for all of us day in and day out. And so Oakwood is definitely one of those top 4 teams who will be competing for the conference championship and has a really good shot. I know they lost to Ottawa, but they have a good shot at winning the conference outright for the regular season. And so it was a good team, but we did what we could and got better in some areas, and that's what we need right now. We're just trying to find ways in game time moments to get better and to grow as a team. And what better way to do that is than playing a solid team that's going to challenge you.
And you got to have a quick turnaround and try to apply some of those lessons just a couple of days later.
Right.
Second home game of the year, Saturday night, to kind of round out our homecoming festivities against York. 2 teams that were scrapping, looking for their first conference wins, their first overall wins in a little while. And, I mean, to me it seemed like, well, first of all, before we go into any of further nuts and bolts, let's talk about that first set because 35-33 is your final in the first set. York wins it. I can count on one hand the number of sets that I've seen in my years covering the sport that have gone that long. What say you? Is that about as long as you've ever seen a set go?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've watched a game go 36-34, but I'm the same way with you. Like, it doesn't happen very often. That's probably the second, maybe the third time I've seen it happen. But yeah, it was a long match, and it's funny because literally everybody I've talked to over the last couple of days is, congrats on the win, but man, that first set, and it sucks because we lost that first set too. But yeah, it was a long match, and what's even something that stuck out to me is both of us had used our timeouts. Like, neither one of us had timeouts left as we got into that later part of the game, and so as coaches, we're kind of stranded on the sideline, just hoping they figure it out. And so, but yeah, it was a long match. I think that match probably went. That set probably went about 45 minutes, which is crazy.
Yeah, one set. And, I mean, it seemed like both teams really wanted to win. I think I counted 10 total set points saved between the two teams. Yeah. And, again, 35-33 your final, at least 10 more points than is typically expected in a set. York is able to pull it out, but, I mean, they were down a couple of starters. I think you guys are just a little bit better, well, over across the board. And for me, it just seemed as if after that set, York kind of ran out of gas, and eventually you guys, in contrast, found your groove. And the next two sets were somewhat close, but then by the time we got to the fourth set, your team absolutely dominated, and it seemed like you were just in better shape to win.
Yeah. Yeah, we, going into set 2, it was – I'm with you. I firmly believed we were the better team, and so it was frustrating losing that first set, especially with the lead that we had. But, we had one of two options. We could decide that the game was over and just kind of, roll over and give it to them, or, we could dig deep and we could find a way to get a set win, right? One set at a time, and then roll into the third and roll into the fourth. And honestly, I think right now that's what we're trying to figure out as a team. We've talked a lot about how we are really young and we're really new, a lot of new faces. And so we really are just trying to find our groove as a whole. And, with that comes, just continuing to show up, right, and not get defeated and not get deflated, and finding those good things and those good moments and just kind of capitalizing on them. And so, right now we're talking a lot with our girls about no back-to-back errors. And I will say, in that first set, that's what killed us.
Sure.
At one point we were up by 5, but we made 4 back-to-back errors to give them hope to be in the game. And so, with that, we're really error prone as a whole. And so we're focusing a lot on, we know we're going to mess up. We've already talked about that. We've already identified that. And so we're okay with that. You're allowed to make those errors, but it's realizing that after you've made one, okay, the pressure's on, and now you have to find a way and you have to score here, right? It can't be rallying, 5 free points to them off of our mistakes. And so that's something we really focused on in set 2 was, okay, great. We've got to bounce back, but how can we really focus on no back-to-back errors? And I will say set 2 was better than set 1, but then set 3 was really where we focused on, and not focused because we were focused on it in the second set, but where we really, I felt, kind of start to come alive in that, we make an error, but then we capitalize and we go score from there. And so set 3 was probably a really, really good set for us to see that side of things on the positive. But then, obviously set 4, we rallied, on a 7-point run, which was cool. And what was even cooler is, we talk a lot with our girls about, the runs and what's the percentage of wins that you can have when you have, a 3-point run and a 4-point run and 5-point runs and all those things. And, statistically, if you have one run of 5, you've got a 90% chance of winning the game. And so
it's 5-point run anywhere in the set?
Yep, anywhere in the set. If you go on a 5-point run, your chances have gone up to obviously go win that match.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and so with that, though, obviously means you have to hold them from
doing
a 5-point run, right?
So
really, volleyball is a game of runs, and it's realizing who can have more runs and who can capitalize and take advantage of those runs. And so, so we got to a certain point late in that fourth set where, somebody that doesn't normally serve for us, Kylie, went on a 7-point run, 7.70 run, serving at the back of the line. And that's what we talk to our girls a lot about is, we've really got to capitalize on those runs and really keep going and not give them an opportunity to go on run themselves. And so set 4, I felt like we did a really good job of that, and I would say at the end of the day, that game was, especially that first set was a dogfight. And, set 1, it didn't look like we were necessarily probably the more in shape team, but as we went on with the match, you're exactly right. Like I feel like we were able to outlast them because of the shape that we're in. And so that was nice. With that, though, too, allowed us to, give some people a break. I mean, Maddie plays 6 rotations for us, and so, it's finding a way to have an option in the back row still, but giving her an opportunity to rest for a serve, right? And so that was huge for us, allowing Sydney to go in and knowing Sydney can be a huge threat in the back row for us.
She made a difference.
And she did, 100%. I mean, she went on a 4-0 run herself.
No doubt.
But then knowing she was an offensive option for us, which was really cool. And so really all across the board, we did some areas we need to clean up serving, but then some areas that we did really good which was exciting to see.
I was going to say, like, if a 5-point run flips the odds that drastically in your favor, I figure a 10-point run, because I think that's what it ended up getting close to in that fourth set, that's got to almost lock it in. If it's 90% at 5-0, then it's got to be close to 100%. And, of course, once you went on that big run with Kylie serving, that pretty much sealed it, because that got you to 23, and then it was just kind of a matter of time for you to finally close it out in that fourth set. About as long of a service run as you will ever see to finish off a match to start with, as long of a set as you will ever see. I felt as if every phase of the game got better for your team as the game went on. Because the first set was, if you'll allow me, it wasn't clinical from either side, but then you guys got better in every phase and kind of left York behind. So hitting got better, serving got better, blocking got better.
Right.
How much I'll let you decide, but I thought that I thought you looked better in all phases, and that was what helped to turn the tide in your favor as the night went on.
Right. No, you're exactly right. You hit it on the head. And that's cool that was cool to see, because, we've been working a lot in practice on the offensive game, as well as blocking, just cleaning some things up there. And so it was cool to see, the things that we're working on come to light in the game. And it took a little bit of time to kick it into gear, but, I think something to be hopeful about is realizing that I think we're starting to turn the ship, right? And things are starting to click for our girls. And that's exciting to see. So, it was definitely a game that I think as it went on, we got better, and that's what you need, right? You don't want to get worse. And just super proud of our girls for that aspect of things too, because, it's so defeating to go 35-33 in set one. It's exhausting, and then it's just defeating to lose it, right? Knowing that you were fighting so hard to pull that out, right? That's a momentum. Like, York should have had momentum going into that second set, knowing that they just pulled off a really, really hard-fought match, or a hard-fought set. And so, I'm super proud of our girls, though, for responding the way that they responded. And that's something that we're really working on is, hey, how can we respond in a way that when things are going bad, good, things are going bad, but we're still going to show up, and we're still going to put in the work and do the things that we know how to do. And that's what they did. And so super proud of them for that.
Positive mindset, even in the face of some adversity, which is bound to happen. Like you said, you might give up a 5-0 run in any given set, but even if you lose that set, ultimately you still have to hopefully rebound and have a chance to win another one. And so that's what you saw. You lose the first set. Like you said, about as unique of a game as you'll ever see, and then you still have to rebound because you got at least 3 more to play, and you guys won the next 3. So, that I think is definitely a good sign of good leadership, strong coaching, and just a belief that everything's going to kind of get better as it goes on.
Yeah,
and you'll have the opportunity to stretch this win into a win streak now. Wednesday night, Southwestern comes into Mabee Fieldhouse, back-to-back home games for you guys, and I know that is a team that, last year especially, played 2 really important games against. The year before, played a really important game against them. And so now here we are, year 3 for you. And I imagine this is another opportunity for an important game against them too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Like I said at the beginning, we got about 5 teams in our conference that are, kind of next tier, and then the rest of us are, day in and day out. It's a battle, and people keep asking, how do they look? How should the game go? All these things, and it's a toss-up. We're all so competitive, right? All I know is we're going to have to show up, and we're going to have to be on our A game, and not perfect, right? But we're just going to have to scrap and claw. And every game from here on out in the season, especially conference play, is going to be a dogfight. Like, there's not a team in our conference that we're going to just roll, right? Like, we're going to have to show up, and that's fun. Dr. Norwood talks with me a lot about this from an aspect of, what are the most exciting games to watch? The ones where you shut a team out 25-10, or ones where it's neck and neck, right? And that's, I think, just perspective for me to realize that those are the fun games, right? Yeah, it's not necessarily great in an aspect of knowing you could go in and you could win it or you could lose it, right? Because that is stressful. But those are the fun games to play, right? When you have that scrappiness that's going on, and just knowing that you're having to fight. And I think that makes the win that much sweeter, right? Knowing that it was a dogfight, like you had to work for it. And so just really, really adopting that mentality that nothing's handed to us, and nothing's going to be handed to us for the remainder of this season. We're going to have to fight for everything, and every other team and that next tier in our conference is, fighting to get into the conference tournament as well. And so we can't take days off, and that's the mentality that we have to keep running with is, no breaks, no days off, and we're all in all day.
Expecting another strong battle when Southwestern comes to town on Wednesday night. We go JV at home at 4 o'clock, varsity to follow at 6 p.m. As always, you can watch all of that live wherever you are right here on the Avila Sports Network. Again, Southwestern at home on Wednesday, and then the Eagles head to Salina to take on Kansas Wesleyan, another one of those early season KCAC frontrunners. That's on Friday night. Coach Mo, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Tim.
That's head volleyball coach Marlyn Mozena. This is Eye on the Eagles. We'll be right back with our next coach. Welcome back to Eye on the Eagles. We're live at Tanner's at Redbridge. Tim Hackett now joined by head men's soccer coach Robert Kelly. Thanks for being here, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome home. I know it was a long trip on Saturday against York, and you're finally back home after a couple of tough games this week. I mean, let's start with the first game, Oklahoma Wesleyan. We knew going in that is the number one team in the conference, top 10 team in the nation. I was watching from the press box, but from your perspective on the sideline, is that team as good as I think they are?
Yeah, I mean, their quality across the board is leaps and bounds better than what we showed. And I think just you can tell that they're the top team in the conference for a reason, and that they're ranked for a reason. They play good soccer, they take care of the ball, and when they get opportunities, even if they're half chances, they make the most out of them.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to sum it up for sure, because I'm just thinking about some of the goals that they scored, and it's just you give a defender the kind of for their third goal. Not many teams are going to score on a chance like that, and that's a defender that comes out and shoots it from 30 yards out. And I'm just thinking from a goalkeeper's perspective, there's nothing you can do about that, because if that's the type of quality that a defender is going to have on offense, then what is anybody supposed to do with something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think nothing keeper could do about it. I think we could have avoided it by getting pressure on the ball to begin with, but we didn't do that, and kudos to the center back for taking a hell of a shot.
No
kidding.
It
just is what it is.
It's one of those where I don't know how we felt up there, but it's just kind of like, okay, like if that's going to be how it is, then okay, fair enough to that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I mean, I'll play the spin card. That's kind of my job, I guess. But at the end of the day, you guys got a goal against them. Great team played. Vinny sets up Sam Conda for the goal. Made it 3-1 towards the end of the half, and the game was right in the balance at that point. 3-1 at halftime is by no means a bad score against them, and then they kind of just ultimately pull away just because of that, the skill that they have, like you outlined. But look, I mean, that was just the second goal that keeper had allowed all year. He's only played half the year, but still only the second goal that he had allowed, and you guys got one past him, which I thought was pretty impressive. I thought he was solid, and the team in front of him was really solid. So, I mean, that's got to be something to like and to build off of for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was good to get that goal, especially towards the end of the half, putting us in just only a 2-goal deficit, heading into the second half. I thought it would set us up for a little bit more success, but to be honest, I think the goal was out of the flow of the game. I don't think we really had many opportunities to really score, and, when we did get one, we took advantage of it, but, I think we let ourselves get too far behind and couldn't manage to dig ourselves out with the quality that we were presenting that day.
But, I mean, since you were able to pull some – I mean, I'll use this expression. Feel free to clean my terminology up. To build something out of nothing for a goal like that against the run of play, like you said, and then seeing how the rest of the game looked, that to me was impressive, because I don't think that they just kind of – it was, again, late in the first half. It's not like it was at the end of the second half and they took everybody out and, completely tuned out of the game. That wasn't the case. You were still able to create something against this top team and have a goal, which is not something that every team has been able to do against them this season. So I think that is at least something to take away from it.
Yeah, it's good to have that, know that we have the quality to finish against teams like that. But, I think the overall part of it is we got to have more of it on a regular basis.
Oklahoma Wesleyan then turns around, and I'm pretty sure they're up 3-0 against Sterling. Sterling comes back to tie them 3-3. Again, second half comeback, I know is not something you want to hear from against Sterling men's soccer, but I mean, I remember saying it on the broadcast. I didn't see Oklahoma Wesleyan losing in conference this year, but they lost one game and drew one game last year, and here you go. So I mean, that to me proves that, if nothing else, that Sterling is a legitimate team this year, which means that your team's performance against them last week looks all that much better, seeing what they were, in theory, able to do against Oklahoma Wesleyan last week.
Yeah, I mean, Sterling did their job when they came in. They fought back from a 2-0 deficit. We like to call it the worst lead in soccer. It's a rough one when you're up 2-0 and then you give that one up, and then you got to fight again and again. And they got 4 set pieces and made the most of it against us. So.
I guess I was talking about this on the broadcast of a women's game. I haven't asked you this question yet. Do you feel that is, I feel like that's an adage that I've heard in this sport and in my world in hockey and all of that stuff too. I always say, 2-goal lead is the hardest to protect. I'm looking at it from a goalkeeper's perspective, thinking a 1-goal lead is a lot harder to protect because as soon as you let one in, that lead is gone. If I've got a 2-goal lead, then we still technically have the lead if I screw up. But I hear that a lot from coaches and players, again, in this sport, hockey, lacrosse, anything like that, water polo, whatever, that the 2-goal lead is the hardest to defend. Do you feel that way, and if so, why?
Yeah, I definitely feel that that's true, mostly in the fact of that next goal, whether it goes our way or not. If we get that third one, it usually, helps kill the game. It shifts momentum our direction, but, if we're not able to get over that hump and push in that direction, then it goes the opposite way. The moment they score that goal, they're one away from getting right back into the game, and it just shifts the momentum in a different direction heading in for the remainder of the game, and it's something that it's a lot of adversity that you're going to have to face, especially protecting the lead, trying to go forward. So
I guess does that what I don't see then, which is why I love talking with coaches and players about this, is again I'm looking at it from a literal perspective. If I'm a defender or a goalkeeper and I've got a 1-goal lead, it is literally the hardest to protect because as soon as we give up a goal, it's gone. But I don't see it from kind of the macro level, from the momentum, if you believe in that, kind of the emotion, the mentality side of things, that now that you have a 2-goal lead, it is a little bit easier. You can kind of sag off a little bit compared to a 1-goal lead, but as soon as you start to do that, if the other team is able to get back in there, it's that much harder to kind of rein everything back in.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of comfortability in a 2-0 lead, but when you start to get too comfortable, that's usually when that goal is scored against you and, things shift. And I think that's a focus thing that a lot of teams have to deal with. Especially when they're up.
We see that a lot in this sport, for sure. Mm-hmm. Not just talking about your team by any means. In this sport, I feel like that is especially true compared to maybe a sport like hockey or lacrosse, where there are more goals typically scored. Like when you have that thin of a margin that gets extended just that little bit, now you start to feel a little bit more comfortable, especially if you played well up to that point. Mm-hmm. Then all the other team has to do is maybe get a lucky break or a good shot or something like that, and then you're right back in, and all of a sudden things can change.
Yep, exactly.
Well, things did change for York in the last 12 months or so. They were the team to beat Oklahoma Wesleyan in the regular season last year, but this year have kind of fallen on hard times, it feels like. What has been the difference from them record-wise that you've seen when you got to see them in person on Saturday? Because, again, just records and numbers is all I get to see. I don't get to watch too much film ahead of time. And to me, polar opposite seasons for them so far. What's been the biggest difference for them so far?
I think they had, heading into our game, they had a lot of injuries, guys out, heading in. So we got a different look on them as a whole, heading into that game. Didn't know what to expect from them. I mean, kudos to them. I think they're really organized. They sit in a low block. They make things really, really difficult and frustrate the crap out of teams. And, it worked well against us. We weren't able to break their back line very often, and when we did, they were able to squander most of our opportunities that we tried to create.
And neither team really had many shots on goal at all. It felt like a really, really physical is the word that I kept using. Well defended, hard-nosed, whatever other expression you want to use. It felt like that tight of a game between two teams that were looking for wins. And, yeah, I mean, like you said, I think there were 5 total shots on goal and 6 total shots on goal, and 3 of them went in. So there weren't many chances for either team, and finally when they did get chances, both teams were able to score occasionally. So it just what is that like? What is that kind of game like to coach, especially when you can tell that there aren't going to be many chances for either team to make something happen?
They can be frustrating, especially when parts of the game aren't going our way, whether it be in possession or not being able to get our shots off, things like that. But, it's part of the game. We got to weather through those storms and figure out a way to win no matter what. And I think that's what York did that day. They didn't get very, very clear opportunities, but when they did, they found a way to make it work. And I think that's the difference between a team that knows how to win and a team that ends up losing on a regular basis.
They're still learning how to do that, right?
Yeah.
The word I kept coming back to was physical. I think there were 32 combined credited fouls in the game, which is like a really high number, and it was dead even. It was like 17-15, something like that. So it's not like one team was being, merciless or outlandish or anything like that. It was just a back and forth game. Is that kind of how it felt on the sideline too?
Yeah, I felt like we could have taken it. I felt like we had control of the game. I would say if we had a possession stat, I would say it was in our favor, probably 60-40. But, at the end of the day, that doesn't matter if we're not putting the ball in the back of the net, taking care of it, and doing the right things.
It's top 8 teams make the conference tournament still, correct?
Yeah.
They haven't expanded that with the new with Evangel now joining the conference?
No, they have not.
All right. They haven't told me that for sure, so I figured I would confirm that with you. We're live documenting this now. So with that being said, even now we're close to the halfway point of the conference season, and even with the 2 losses this week, you're still right on the fringes of playoff positioning right now. We're only a couple of games out, not even at the halfway point. And again, I realize it's probably not easy to hear this now, but it's not a conversation that we have had with this program, with you and me, or in the history of this program in the last few years. So that, again, at the halfway point, to still very much be in the mix, I think has to be edifying and hopefully is exciting for you and the guys.
Yeah, it is, but I feel like at the same time we've put ourselves in a position where we're having to struggle towards the end and really put some good performances together in order to actually achieve that goal. And whether or not that we can do that is another question at the end of the day. But, yeah.
Well, you've got another chance to do that coming up on Wednesday night. Southwestern is the next team up. Kind of the similar situation. They're pretty much right there neck and neck with you guys in the standings. Maybe one more win, I think, at this point of the year. I think they're 2-4. But this has always been a team that has been right in that mix since you and I have been here. They've finished 6, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there in the standings, and usually defend well, usually kind of muck it up, and sometimes they've had some elite players. I don't know too much about them this year besides from that. What can you tell us about the Mound Builders, and what can you tell us about what you're expecting on Wednesday?
It's going to be a battle. I think we took them to a draw last year, 1-1 at their place. We're going there again, so it's going to be a battle. I know they got some guys that can score some goals, and it showed. They had I think a tough one against Tabor this last week. But they scored 3 goals, so they can score some goals if you're not on top of it defensively. And I think, quite frankly, that's probably been our biggest problem so far.
Is scoring?
No, is keeping them
from scoring.
Yeah.
It's how do you work on that, I guess, because I know there's been a lot of personnel changes in front defensively, something that I've been impressed by. Actually, this is great to bring up because I haven't even had the chance to talk to you about it. We've seen some of your outside backs play 90 minutes. Now, whether that's out of necessity or out of skill, I'll let you determine, but that's not something that we have seen from your teams in the past, and I know that's by design because of how important they are to the counterattack and how integral they are to the offense, but we've seen in the last couple of weeks David Carring play 90. We saw Matthew Kelly play 90 against York the other day. That's not something that those two guys are used to, not because they aren't capable, but just because it's not something that normally happens with your team. So has that been by design? And if so, have you liked what you've seen from those two guys, just to name a couple, and the defense as a whole?
Yeah, I think it's just goes to show their quality that they've been putting forward in those games. If we don't see that we need to make a change in those spots, or if things aren't going super well, then we keep those guys in. But if we need to revamp, we reach to our bench, we put new guys in, see if they can give us a different look and see what the game gives us from there.
So it's really kind of a merit-based kind of result at that position still?
Yeah.
Because, we've seen at times, even thinking last year especially, those two guys that I just mentioned, David Carring and Matthew Kelly, both multi-year regulars for this program, sometimes they would just, switch off halves. One would play one half and one would play the other, and you just go 45 each. But, again, we've seen both of them play 90 in the last couple of weeks, which is not something I don't think I've ever seen from either of them. So, so that's just because they have, for lack of a better term, earned that spot, earned that time out there?
Yeah, I think their quality when we've had to make subs and stuff like that were good, and we rewarded them for that coming into the next games, whether it be them starting or getting more playing time, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, I think those guys have earned that spot and performed well. Otherwise, we'd make changes.
Absolutely. Okay, fair enough. And we talked about kind of the flip from year to year for York. Good last year, the record this year not very good. Kansas Wesleyan's kind of the other story because they were the last place team in the conference last year. You guys beat them on the road in Salina. And now this year, before last week or maybe 10 days ago, they were undefeated in conference. I think they're 4-1-1 as it stands right now on Monday morning. And, I've never watched them play this season, but just seeing those results trickle in, I was surprised because, again, last place team in the conference last year, brand new head coach, and here they are now. So, I had circled this as a game coming into the season, a home game, against a team that you guys beat last year. Thought that might be a fun one, but now I don't know what to expect from them this year. It seems like they're a new team.
Yeah, I mean they've definitely foregone their woes of last season and have revamped. I think their coach is doing a good job of getting these guys going again. And it's I think with our conference, it's a any given day kind of situation. Like we were talking about, Oklahoma Wesleyan just tied Sterling 3-3 in a game that we probably think shouldn't have been that way, but kudos to Sterling, they did their job.
And I mean, I think that just proves our point that you and I talk about this every time on the show, that how open this conference seems to be. We got to see Oklahoma Wesleyan now firsthand. Obviously, still think they're the cream of the crop, but Sterling tied them. Not that they're bad. I thought Sterling certainly looked good here at Barstow a couple of weeks ago, so they're clearly good. But I mean, there's a bunch of other solid teams, but nobody else that's amazing. So to me, that just continues to prove that this conference can go any way, it feels like. So there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of teams to do something as we hit the halfway point of the regular season this week.
Yep, that's for sure.
So that comes up. We will hit the halfway point this week. 7th game of the conference season on Wednesday. Avila travels to Winfield to take on Southwestern on Wednesday night at 7:30, and then the Eagles are back at home at the Z on Saturday afternoon to take on Kansas Wesleyan. Again, Southwestern on Wednesday on the road, Kansas Wesleyan here at home on Saturday. Coach Kelly, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching Eye on the Eagles this week. Thank you to Tanners at Redbridge, as always, for hosting us. Thank you to executive producer Darian Miner for everything that he does. I know he's not watching, but I hope you're doing well, sir. And for all of us here at Avila Athletics, I've been Tim Hackett. We'll see you next time on Eye on the Eagles, same time, same channel, 11:30 a.m., right here at Tanners and on the Avila Sports Network every Monday. We'll see you then. Until then, so long.